Hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Keller. I am from KTH, Department of Learning in Engineering Sciences. I'm doing this recording for two reasons. One of them is because I want to learn how Cultura Capture works. And the other one is to make available what came out of the discussions during the webinar today for you who perhaps couldn't be there. So earlier today at lunchtime, Frederick Enochson, Helena Leinholm, and myself facilitated the discussions around the question, how has the switch to distance education gone so far? So the webinar was not recorded, and that gave us more opportunity to discuss, and it's always important to be able to think back and reflect. As a teacher, we should always know and understand that. This is a slide that the Lunch and Learn people have prepared, and it's a good one for those of you who have never participated in a Zoom meeting. A few good things to keep in mind is here at the left-hand side, you have the microphone that you need to remember to unmute before you start talking. And then if you need to write and ask questions, you use the chat box. And if you would like to raise your hand to ask questions, you first click on the participant icon there. And when this list of participants opens on the right-hand side, there is a button at the bottom that says raise hand. That's the one you click. Okay, we had about 45 minutes, and Frederick started by giving us a very broad background on what has happened so far. Then Helena introduced our work with the Padlet and the breakout rooms, and then we concluded the discussions. So I'll start with what Frederick presented about what has happened so far. Well, as you can imagine, after 4 weeks, a lot has happened. And it's amazing to see the progress that we have achieved in such a short period of time. As you may have heard, on the 11th of March, the government limited the gatherings to a maximum of 500 people. And that can be considered the start of universities in Sweden going fully online. This limit was decreased to 50 on the 27th of March. But KTH was fast. So already on the 12th of March, KTH recommended teachers to use more digital tools. And then we were very prepared when on the 17th of March, the Swedish government appealed all universities to switch to distance education. We can say that we were already on the way. On the 18th of March, KTH restricted access to campus for all students. And that means that's when we went online for an unknown period of time. On the 20th of March, KTH then decided to form special groups to support this digitalization. And these groups were e-learning, digital examination, and another one on video, web meeting, and streaming. Right now, this week, is the re-examination period, so a lot of questions have been around this theme. Frederick noted a couple of important points, and quite interesting to know that Zoom, for example, the usage of Zoom went from 50 to 2,500 meetings per day in a very short period of time. Canvas, on the other hand, doubled, which means many KTH teachers were already using Canvas, but not so many were using Zoom. So it is important for us teachers to keep in mind that we should use the tools that are managed by KTH. And those are Canvas, our LMS, course program and group web, the personal menu everyone has, Artologic survey and report where you do the course evaluation, LEQ, Urkund for plagiarism check, and Mobius for advanced quizzes. The two tools you see here at the bottom, they are not particularly being managed by KTH at the moment, but supported, of course, because a lot of people have switched into Zoom, and as myself right now, using Kaltura Video for recording. So, the group discussions, how did that happen? Well, the purpose of the group discussion was to look at these 3 points. How the switch went, and what problems that caused, what new ideas appeared, if any. And also, perhaps, to forward questions to the Department of Learning for future seminars, if there will be any. So, for the discussions, we used Padlet. Padlet is a digital whiteboard. So, what we discussed in the Padlet were these 3 things, basically. What's the difference about digital teaching compared to ordinary teaching? What has worked well and not so well? And perhaps the kind of support that teachers need in the future. So now you see the Padlet that we used. It was made by Helena. If you have never used Padlet as a digital whiteboard, there are different ways of doing it. And this one she designed in columns. So there are foil columns in this Padlet. And at the bottom, you see these plus signs here. So if you click on the plus sign, you will see that there is a box that comes, and you write a title, and then you write what you would like to say. So on the left-hand column, people wrote about what they thought was different between teaching face-to-face and teaching online. And one of the big things that came was in relation to time. So we have to remember that planning is very important, and therefore it takes more time to design, to think how you're going to do your teaching. And it's important to think about, we need more breaks as well. Otherwise it gets really, really tiring. And then also, perhaps because we do less travel, we save a little time as well. One of the big differences was pointed out as how difficult it is with spontaneous interactions among the audience. It's not possible for people to simply look on one side and look on the other side and ask a question. And therefore, we have to consider this. How can we make this possible? And the last point that we have in that column is that most students don't use the camera and they don't speak during the lecture. So teachers need to be creative to make them more interactive, more active. On the second column, where we see what has worked well and what has worked less well, we see the first box that says equipment. Computer is too old for handling Zoom. And manage many programs at the same time can be very challenging for people who are not used to it. And Zoom is not very intuitive, and therefore people need a little more guidance on how to navigate. Next point mentioned was that it's good if you and your students can have more than one digital device available, computer, iPad, mobile phone. Not everybody can have that, perhaps. Here is a positive point. Support has been very good. The speed of change brought good examples and great support to make things work well under the circumstances. That's very good. Some people pointed out that they didn't quite understand the difference between a Padlet and Google Docs, for example. And here is something, again, about interaction among participants. There is much less natural interaction, like asking questions. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. And the last box here says you have to rethink your teaching. That's an important point. And on the third column, when it comes to support, here we have 3 boxes. One of them that says recording software, easy to use recording software that you can edit. Perhaps people need that. Next, a whiteboard, headset, other kinds of teaching materials, both analogous and digital, to help in your teaching. And the last box says a less serious student communication platform. Students also need to communicate, so Slack or Discord for relaxing, chatting, jokes, more than anything else. So after the Padlet discussions, we came back as a big group to finalize our meeting. And we finished off with suggestions, for example. The first suggestion is we as teachers, we need to invest time in our own learning as well. So one suggestion for that would be to take a course, such as a digital learning in higher education course that is coming up this autumn. It has 4.5 credits, and it will help you feel more comfortable about how you can actually become a more digitalized person. Next, it is important that we activate our networks. We don't need to be alone. And already in May, we have this big meeting, the Stortreff, as it's known. And that's a great opportunity for us to meet faculty, to meet different people from different areas, not only teachers, but everybody, administrators, people involved in education at KTH. Great opportunity, you should not miss, and this time it's going to be online. The third suggestion we have is think about how you are going to share your experiences. And one suggestion for us at KTH would be in the upcoming SOTL. If you have never heard, SOTL is a scholarship of teaching and learning, and it's an opportunity for us teachers to share what has worked in our teaching and what has not worked, and that we learn from each other. So that's something that we can keep in mind, and it's going to be in March next year, so keep that date in mind. So last but not least, we finished off with a few reminders that is important after 4 weeks of chaos, almost, but not so much, I would say. We would like to leave by pointing out a few things. Use Canvas. Why? Canvas is what gives us structure. And if we are going to keep learning in mind, and the learners, of course, they need clear instructions, they need support, scaffolding, if you want to say, and that will help them focus on the learning. And as you saw earlier that Frederick pointed out, we should use available support that is managed by KTH. We used Padlet, even though Padlet is not managed by KTH, is free, and we can use it if we don't expect KTH to sort of give us specific support on that. Next point is we have different kinds of teaching at KTH. and the context really matters, which means we have to adapt to what works for ourselves, for our kind of teaching. And for that, we need to, of course, be flexible and pragmatic. And I think it's important to keep in mind that right now, we don't need to really go crazy. We have to keep in mind that good enough works, and it should be enough now. One important point we would like to leave is we are not trying to adapt technologies to the way we teach. We should think the other way around. We should adapt our teaching method to what's available, the technology that is available, and now the new situation. So how can we adapt the way we teach to this new way of teaching? And luckily, we are sharing best practices. We are going to be sharing a number of things, and that can lead to perhaps a new way of doing things, innovation, ideas. So that's what we hope for. And the last point, that not to forget that what we are doing right now in these 4 weeks is not called really online learning. It's remote teaching. And this part here, this process from remote teaching to online learning, is a long journey. And therefore, it's important that we spend time thinking and investing on how can we do this better. We don't want to end up with bad online courses, do we? So let's work towards good online courses that will help our learners. Well, if you need help, KTH does offer help in the pedagogical character, technical character, of course. And if you're not sure, well, send an email to IT support. They will forward your question to whoever can answer. Remember that there is also a vast amount of information available on the intranet. And the Department of Learning is always available for help in whatever you need. So at the end, we asked our participants to fill in a form to give us some ideas of what is that they would like more of, so we can prepare future webinars. Thank you.